look, 80% of the American population do not believe the official narrative of John F. Kennedy's death.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty much the same with the McCanns, to be honest. I don't think anyone...
Well, what about Lady Diana?
Yeah, well, that was an interesting one, because I worked with a guy that was heavily involved in that case, and he turned around to me and he said, look, the public gets what the public wants. They want an inquiry, they're going to get an inquiry.
Instead of an investigation.
And he said, but anyone who thinks that was an accident is an effing idiot. That's what he said to me. He said, they killed her. You know, he told me outright. He said, no, they killed her. So,
and was that because of the relationship that she was having, or was she going to... Is a thing
that wasn't revealed to me, but she was starting to speak out about things, didn't she? You know, she started saying some very sort of strange stuff, didn't she, about the royal family, and yeah, she was crossing the line on many levels, wasn't she? She was with a Muslim guy when she was pregnant. I mean, the other thing is they exsanguinated her blood, didn't they? They what do they do when they drain all the blood? There's a word for it. When someone goes into the mortuary, they take all the blood out.
Yeah, and they put the
they put a fluid in there,
fluid
an antifreeze, don't they? Yeah. Circulate around, and they did that to her. You know, there was no need. There was no need to do that. That comes before the autopsy.
Embalming.
Then embalmed her straight away. Within hours, she was embalmed. I mean, so again, it's ruining evidence, isn't it? You know, ruining evidence.
But was that a thing that the French done naturally over there, or was it just their system?
Yeah, I think the procedure's standard. You know, it's a standard procedure. I think you'll see a lot of the investigation departments go by the same, you know, because it works. You know, I had a friend of mine. He went out to Thailand because we dealt with dead bodies on the river for a little while. He got sent out to the tsunami. And he went, you know, these countries, and Bali, ended up going out to the Bali bombing as well. But he said the tsunami, he said, you know, all the money that Thailand gets, he said it's living in the Stone Ages, right? Yeah. He said, so over here, if there's a dead body, we take them, we put them in refrigeration, or they get frozen, depending. If they know what's happened, they can freeze them. If they don't, because once you freeze a body and then you defreeze it, it falls apart. So you only freeze it once you know what's happened, or it's never going to get sold. But when you keep it cool, it starts to slowly rot. So it's a balancing act, right? But that's where you put them anyway. You put them in these mortuaries. And he said in Thailand, what they did was there were so many bodies and all that, they tied rope around the feet and tied them to a rock and just left them on the beach. He said the tide was coming in and out, and the bodies were just left there, all on the beach with rocks tied to them. And what they found was a lot of old men out in Thailand were registered sex offenders. You know, so yeah, they went out and thought, oh, actually, we know this guy. You know, he hasn't signed on the register for the last month. You know, there he is out in Thailand. You know,
wow.
There's so.
We like to have a bit of a laugh doing these as well.
Well,
we do like. Did you have any laughs in the police?
Oh man, all the time. You know, it was just non-stop laughing. You know. I mean, some of it was macabre, and you know, some of it was a little bit naughty. But
I think living in that environment, you're going to have dark humour, and the same as soldiers, same as criminals. We all have a dark sense of humour.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because if you're living in a hard world, if something's funny, it's funny. Whatever the scenario is, if it is actually funny, it's funny. I'm afraid.
Across the board, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's a banter as well. I love the banter. So if there was something slightly amiss with someone, you'd get ripped to pieces.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, there was one guy when I joined. The bullying culture was quite raw, but I found it quite funny. I just did. I just found it funny. So no matter what they did to me, it made me laugh. So you'd sit down as a new lad, and it'd be in a canteen with your dinner, and somebody get your dinner and throw it out the window. Your dinner would just go flying out the window. You know, they wouldn't let you sit with them, and things like that. That you'd have your old police hat. You'd be so proud of it. And someone would come by with their truncheon and just smash it on the top and smash the crown off it or the badge off it and rubbish like that. And but the guy I worked with, they started doing it to him as well, and he started really taking it personally. They got my locker once and they put it out in the backyard and stuffed a hose in it. All my stuff in it, and I found it funny. They put a dead fox in someone's locker, but one of the things they did, if you left your notebook, which is where you put your evidence, and that's what they call your first account, your original note, right? So it's evidentially it's quite powerful. So you write down these little notebooks, these incident books, what happened. And if you left it lying around, someone would draw a big cock in it, right? And of course, you have to take that to court. You know? and so what happened with one guy? He goes to court for this case, and the barrister has to ask the judge, can the officer refer to his notes? And the judge will say, yes, he can refer to his notes. So they'll bring out, officer, you can refer to your notebook. And they have all the evidence what they've done, they ripped the pages out of it and just drawn a massive cock. So he's now got to give evidence and he's just staring at a cock. You know, and he has to make it up. You know, just
on oath.
Yeah, on oath, in front of a jury on a major case as well. Imagine the judge would say, can I have a look at, that'd be it, you'd all go away.
Wow.
You know, and that's the sort of thing you're like thinking, oh, you bastard,
yeah.
Massive cock drawn in there. And by the end of it, you could tell who'd done it by how they some put more detail than others, you know, and things like that. But I just found it funny. I just, and then all of a sudden it's someone else's turn and bits and pieces. But yeah, it was just a laugh. I mean, I remember going in one day, I was a detective and brought this guy in. And I'd known him, he was always in and out of crime and whatnot, but he was a really smartly dressed guy. And I was always skint. I never had any money because I had kids at home and all that. And I said to him, as I'm bringing him in the custody, I said, you haven't got a fag, have you? And he went, oh, for fuck. Always your ponton. As we go through the custody door, he gets a cigarette, puts it in my mouth and smacks me round the head and then went, it's the last fucking cigarette I'll give you, you know that? And the sergeant says to him, everything all right? He went, he's just a nightmare. And so he said, all right. He said, Jada, go and chuck him in the cell. Grabs hold of me and throws me in the cell. And they both go, no, I'm the prisoner. There was one guy I worked with. He used to be in the SBS. He was a real hard nut. He was really, really tough guy. And we go into, I think it was Kentish Town, Nick, or somewhere like that. We end up in there with a prisoner, and they had a toilet for the police officers. It was busy, and he's like, I'm busting for a piss. I said, we'll just go in the cell. And he went, oh, I don't really want to eat. I said, just hurry up, go in the cell. So he goes in this cell, and he goes around the corner and he's having a wee. And the next thing, the TSG bring in this violent, big black guy, really violent prisoner, and the sergeant went, just chuck him in the cell.
Close the door.
Threw him in the cell, closed the door, because my mate's down the piss. Next thing, this bloke just attacks him while he's having a piss. And you hear all this screaming and shouting. And I think it's the prisoner. Like, oh, shut up. And so I'll tell you one. We went to raid a brothel once, and
you weren't in it, were you, brother?
No. Oh, well, that has happened. They have caught people in them, but they went to the wrong address and they booted the door down. Some poor old woman was about to open it, and the door lands on her. And they've all gone running in over the door, and they killed the poor old girl just stuck under the door. You know, stupid stuff like that goes on. I mean, I did it in Brixton. I went and got a warrant, and a drugs warrant. I said, guy, I'll tell you one. Yeah, it got a bit naughty. And I said, come with me to do this address in Brixton. He went, yeah. Well, there's so and so Brixton Road, and there's Brixton Hill Road, right? I've gone to the wrong one. So we've gone in there and we booted this door in, and with this drugs warrant, and this lad come down, he's a student, but he's a really, really posh lad, and it's like a student residence. He said, oh my God, what's gone on? I said, well, we're drugs, with information. And he went, well, I said, here's a warrant. And he went, oh right, okay. He said, it's false, we don't do drugs in it. My mate said, no, shut your mouth and sit down. And as we're going through, we're looking at the post, and he looks at the post, looks at the warrant, and he went, John. And we went up and all right, don't do it again. What do you bring round your flat? He went, I'm really sorry, officers, you know. But I went, I ended up dealing with the Turkish Mafia, and I got in a lot of trouble, a lot of serious trouble. There was a real credible and active hit on me. There was a death threat on me, and it was a hitman had been paid 40 grand to kill me, and I got myself in a lot of seriously hot water with this lot. So I I get put on like sort of restricted duties really, because they'd found out they'd raided a coffee shop, the organised crime lot, and they'd found a picture of me in a Turkish one of these Kavesi coffee shops with all the heroin boys, and the picture was, they called me the blue-eyed snake. They said, oh, he looks like us, but he's not. He's a slippery. Don't let him in, whatever you're doing, because I was going on their premises and finding heroin, and I got quite good at it, and I really put a dent in their little importation thing. So they decided to bribe me. So they offered me £80,000 cash, these Turkish boys, and I wouldn't accept it. I went, no. They went, oh, we know you need money with your kids and all that. They knew about it. You sort of get to know each other, you know. And he gave me £4,000. He said, tomorrow you come and I'll give you 76,000. I went, no, I'm not doing it, because they were making £80,000 a day.
Wow.
That was their average earnings. It was big money. And I went, no. So he just said, it's a big problem now, John. Big problem. So they decided to have a meeting, but they had an undercover guy and an informant that had infiltrated the Turkish Mafia.
So they knew what they was doing. They could relay it.
So they're in this meeting, and a picture of me comes around, and they take it back to Scotland Yard and say, does anyone know this? And of course my superintendent went, yeah, it's one of my... He's in big trouble, you know. So I weren't allowed in Hackney or Haringey, because it was... So I'm sitting in a canteen one day, and a bit of info comes in, and it's only an inquiry, and I can't go anywhere on my own. I have to take someone with me. So I said to this lady who walks by, I went, what are you up to? He went, well, not much. I said, can you come with me? I said, I'm not really allowed out. He said, well, I don't know. I've been told that you've got to stay. I said, no, just go. I've just got to go over to this address. It was in Stamford Hill. You know, it's Hackney, Haringey, bordery area. And I said, it's no drama. I'm telling you, it's no drama, but I can clear this crime up. We go there. I said, I'm telling you now, no drama, in and out. He went, oh, all right then. He said, do I need to take the vest? And I went, no, don't worry about any of that stuff. Just go. And it was a bit cold, so I just picked someone's coat up, and I thought, oh, I'll just take that. And by chance, there was one of them ASP extendable batons in there, because I never used to take anything, and a pair of handcuffs. Maybe handcuffs I took, but that was about it. So we go to this address, and knock on this door, and the door opens, and this guy's a bit retarded. He's a Turkish guy. And then there's the iron, you know, the iron safety gate they got there in some of these flats. And then I'm saying, can you open this? He said, who is it? I said, it's John, you know me, John, you know, from the casino. I was just lying. And he went to open it, and as he did, this head pops out from the front room, screams at him in Turkish, and another head pops out, and then they run in the room. They've told this guy, don't open it, whatever. So I end up convincing the guy, please do it, you know, and I'll grab him and I pull him to the gate and I make him open it, right? But he's a bit backwards, Down syndrome sort of lad, you know. So he opens the gate and they're screaming and screaming. And I said to my mate, we got to see what's going on? So we go in there, and it's a council flat, but they put these new windows in, and they only open about that much, like that way. And they're shoving out a suitcase. And I said, what's in it? And they know the game's up, and he goes, it's drugs, John, and I think maybe a bit of cannabis. There's 10 million quid of heroin. It's full to the brim with heroin, right? 96% purity. I think, oh, flipping hell. So I go to put it in. As I go to pull the case in, one of the guys runs, and his hand goes under the cushion on the sofa. And I think we're going to get shot. My mate thinks he's going to get shot. He starts panicking and screaming, and it's all gone wrong. And I think, I don't know what to do. So I put my hand in my pocket and I found this asp. I think that's a result. So I smashed the guy straight over the head, and then he sort of passes out, and then the other guy puts his hands up. And what he was doing, he had some SIM cards and he was trying to hide them. Right, well, but I thought it was a
weapon,
Yeah, but then it turned out to be the biggest seizure nationally that year. It was a big...
What, and you had a hunch that was in there?
No, didn't have a clue.
That was just pure...
Didn't have a clue. I was just going for a real off-the-cuff inquiry, and of course I was told, look, you can't, you know, go there because you've upset them, you've seized too much of heroin.
In an area where
and I've done it again, you know, and of course it caused so many problems, you know, they went mad, you know, but they were happy because I got the result. But the guy
Did you get like a reward or anything?
No. I actually.
Do you get a commendation?
No, what happened was, because I was covertly doing stuff for the National Crime Squad with informants, I would go missing for a few days, and my lot weren't allowed to know where I was. And I was getting information in. About 3 days later, I managed to get a car stopped in the Target roundabout in Southall, and it had 330 kilos of heroin in it, right? It was a massive, it was just under 30 million quid's worth of heroin, right? Full up of heroin. I was thinking, flipping hell, right? It was just brilliant. It was the best hit ever they'd ever had. But again, it caused more problems for me. And when I came back in, one of the bosses was so jealous, I got arrested for corruption, right? Because it came from an informant that I didn't have to tell them about.
Yeah.
And because I wouldn't tell them, they nicked me for corruption. I got nicked and I got formally interviewed for corruption. And it was pure jealousy, absolute pure jealousy. But that was, the Turkish was, that was dangerous. They were really, oh man, there was a contract out on me with the kid stuff, with the pimping the kids out. And the woman running it, she got this well-known Jamaican yardie, right, called Soldier or some street name like that, Dog or something, he had this name, right? So they've intercepted the phone calls. In prison, it's a private phone, they monitor all the calls, you know? So anyone in prison, if they're high profile, their calls are all monitored.
100%, yeah.
And back then, you had to physically monitor it. So we had to sit in, the prison was in Holloway Prison, listening to the phone calls and recording them, right? Anyway, this woman, she's in there for pimping the kids, and so she said to this, like, boyfriend, as it were, he's that Jamaican guy, that Wedger, he said he's a nuisance, you know, we're going to have to get him out of the game, you know, we're going to have to sort something out. So he said, well, she was due for a mention hearing, she's remanded in Holloway, in about a week's time at one of the magistrates' court, Horseferry Road magistrates. She said, well, when I go for the hearing, why don't we get someone to do him, right? Because I just would turn up on my own and all that, you know. Hear this info, so it gets escalated, and they mix up the dates. They said, right, we're going to put a little sting-in protection in and all that. But no, I think the date gets moved forward or something. The court date gets moved forward. Anyway, the dates get mixed up. Anyway, I go to court, right, and then all of a sudden it dawns on me, the Jamaican guy's been tasked with it, right, but it's a morning hearing. So I said to a colleague I'm with, I said, I think I'm going to get done, we need to put a call in. And she said, how do you feel? I went, well, what's the time? And it was like 10 a.m. court hearing. I went, I don't mean this in a bad way. I said, look, he's Jamaican. He ain't going to get out of bed till midday. But he didn't. He turned up at 2:00. He got up late. He thought it was, you know, and he turned up with a knife to stab me. But he's Jamaican and stayed in bed. And someone said to me, did it worry you? And I went, no.
Had it been 2:00, it might have been.
Yeah, had it been a Turk, I'd have been worried. The Turkish were. They do worry me.
Still come after you today?
No, not really. You know, I think a lot of them went away for big sentences. I mean, I got jumped in Leeds, but this was when I was in my last days in the police. I had to go up for a court hearing, and the contract was still live. And two guys jumped me in the centre of Leeds as I was coming back to London. Someone just shouted my name, and as I turned around, I got jumped. And luckily, an off-duty copper turned up and helped out, and you know, they were going to smash me up, stab me and everything. So that as near as it got, but luckily I sort. But no one's really. I had it the other day, because I do stuff with ex-offenders now. I was walking through central London and a guy came up to me and went, you nicked me in 1997, and he was sort of mouthing off about that a little bit. But I was on a train, and I sat on this train, and this guy comes and sits opposite me. He plonks down a load of beers, right? He takes a beer out. He went, here, John, have one of them. I'm thinking, does he know my name? And I went, oh, thanks. So I said, really kind of you. So I'm drinking this beer, and he's drinking. He went, you no effing idea who I am, have you? I went, no. I said, mate, you nicked me, and you got me some big bird. You don't remember, do you? And I went, not really. I said, how did I treat you? He went, would I be giving you a beer now for putting me back? I said, are we cool? He went, yeah, we're cool. And then it come back. I was thinking, oh, yeah. But I was never... one guy had a hate campaign against me, a paedophile, and he made all sorts of allegations. He alleged that I raped his wife, that I stole money from them, but he was just a very dangerous, vexating man. And I got him put away for quite a long time. And he was horrible man. And actually at his sentencing, he kept sacking his legal team, and his barrister had a real rough ride representing him. And as I was just walking out of the court during his trial, his barrister walked past me and she said, John, make sure you get that CUNT double figures. I hate him. So even if,